This is Reverend Dr. David Chotka of Spirit Equipped Ministries. Something unusual is happening in the heavens on December the 21st, 2020. Jupiter and Saturn are joining up in alignment so that on Earth it will look like an enormous star. So they're paying attention because it's completely unusual. It's out of place. It's not ordinary. It hasn't happened in over 400 years. Now, if something is inside out or odd or different, you pay attention. Now, this only happened to me one time, and I never let it happen again. I was a new student in a different middle school. At that age, I was self-conscious, very aware of how I was dressing or if I fit in or whatever. So I did my best to get the very best kind of ordinary clothes that I could find, and I put on an ordinary pullover sweater, and away I went off to my school, and I came into my first class on my first day with a brand new teacher and a bunch of students that I didn't know. I took my seat as it was assigned, and I was sitting right in front of a soft-spoken, quiet, kind of gentle girl. And both of us went through the first half hour in class. And then she tapped me on the shoulder. Now, I didn't want to pay attention to her, and so I ignored her, and I kept doing my work, and then she tapped me on the shoulder again. Now, I still didn't want to pay any attention to her until she tapped me on the shoulder a second and a third time, and the third time. We waited for a moment when the teacher was caught up in helping another student, and I turned a little bit to see what it was that she was trying to tell me, and she whispered very kindly and very gently, and she said to me in a voice that only she and I could hear, "You might want to head off to the washroom. You got your pullover sweater on inside out." Now, press pause. Put yourself in the shoes of someone in 7th grade just about hitting puberty, and feel the red flush going up your neck to the lower part of your face, and feel the embarrassment as you raise your hand to ask the teacher if you could head off to the restroom. Then feel thankfulness with the realization that nobody else noticed, and the girl behind you was soft-spoken, well-mannered, and had your best interest at heart. Now, I noticed, and I never let the thing happen again. But just like the scientists are looking at that great big conjunction of planets in the sky with Jupiter and Saturn, when things are not ordinary, when they're out of place, or when they're in an unusual location, or perhaps the wrong time, or even the wrong color, if it's simply out of the ordinary, people stop and they pay attention. And that's why they noticed. Who? We call them the wise men, or the magi. Though this was nothing so insignificant as an inside-out pullover, it was more in the order of planets lining up to create the view of an enormous star. You see, these men were astrologers. They'd spent their lives watching stars and planets. And there was a regular routine to how those stars behaved. They behaved in a regular kind of a way. The night sky always behaved. The moon followed a pattern as it waxed and waned, and so did the fixed rotation of the stars and how it appeared that they would circle the night sky. You see, the magi were actually an order of magicians. If you want to read the Bible about it, they were actually called sorcerers who practiced the mystic arts. They show up as the enemies of the prophet Daniel and his 3 friends 500 years before the birth of Jesus. And you could read about how Daniel and his 3 friends actually wound up saving their lives in Daniel chapter 2, if you're interested. Or how in jealous rage they had Daniel thrown into the lion's den in chapter 6, and how he escaped by his faith in God. Now, those magi practiced something called magic. Mystic arts, something that was banned by Moses for Jewish and Christian faith. That included astrology, reading from the position of the stars what the destiny of a person born under that sign would be. These astrologers had done this for generations and generations, leading right up to the time when the Magi, who are also called the wise men in the book of Matthew, noticed that the star pattern was inside out, upside down, completely out of order, unusual, and strange to the nth degree. You see, in ordinary astrology, the position of the star determined the destiny of the baby. But when Jesus was born, everything got turned inside out. It was extraordinary in the extreme. When Christ was born, the position of the baby determined the destiny of the star. The shirt was on inside out, and the whole class noticed. So a group of magi, and I think there were a lot more than 3, but according to the legend, there were at least 3. They took at least 1 or 2 years out of their lives. They had to close up shop. They found 3 gifts that were suitable to a king whose birth could move stars out of their ordinary orbit. And they gathered resources to travel, tents and armed guards and provisions and water and camels and horses and clothing and everything that was needed for a trip of years. Because that child's influence on the stars broke every single one of the rules of everything that they had studied all through their lives. That child's influence turned their understanding of power, of leadership, of kingship, and even of God himself inside out, upside down, topsy-turvy. The narrative says that they received advice from a Hebrew king named Herod. He asked some priests about what it said in the Bible about where it was that the Christ, the Messiah, was to be born. So they traveled there to a little town called Bethlehem, and as they traveled, something astonishing happened. Listen to Matthew chapter 2, verse 9. After hearing the king, they went on their way. Now notice this. The star which they had seen in the east went on before them until it came and stood over the place where the child was. The star in the sky moved right over to the place where the child king and Mary and Joseph were. Now you need to know this about stars. Stars don't care what you do on the face of planet Earth. Stars don't pay attention to human actions. It's supposed to be the other way around. But this star did just that. And these stargazers knew that they were in the presence of one greater than a star, and he was a lot more than just a star child. He was the maker of the stars in human form to raise the lowly to the highest place. We can be sure that the arrival of those strangely dressed and wealthy foreigners, practitioners of banned mystic arts, caused Mary and Joseph to have their worlds, their lives turned inside out. Though God the Son already knew that his life would be the source of everyone's life being turned inside out, actually being turned back right again, because that's what he came to do. You see, our lives are already inside out. You know this if you suffered it all. Jesus came to speak to us gently, to whisper from behind us that the things in our fallen world are reversed and they need to be set right again. They need to be righted by positioning the Christ child within our wounded hearts to heal them. And even to move heaven and earth, if he needs to move a star to save us. You see, he came to whisper to us gently, to tell us how we could make things right again, so that we can be saved not just from embarrassment, but from all kinds of things that are destructive and evil. Jesus would guide us to bring us back the right way once again. This is why those pagan magi noticed. They noticed because everything was inside out. This is why the scientists right now are paying attention, because in the last 400 years, Jupiter and Saturn haven't aligned. Our response should be just like the response of the wise men. They saw the child with Mary, his mother. They fell to the ground and they worshipped him. And then they brought out their gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And we would be wise to do the same. This is the Reverend Dr. David Chotka of Spirit Equipped Ministries. I do hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We're praying that God would bring great good out of all the evil we've been through in 2020. If you would like to receive weekly blogs, you can go to the opt-in section on the website, www.spiritequipped.com, and you can sign up for that and you'll get a blog twice a week, or you can click on the YouTube channel that's there underneath that, and you can subscribe and become a regular to receive videos like this. May the Lord bless your new year.